This video is a supplement to Lesson 3 of the Basics Correspondence course. In the first one for this lesson, I'm going to talk about how to measure gauge the way we do it in the master's program. For information on how to create a gauge swatch, refer to the reference section in the handout. This is just going to talk about measuring. You can see in the swatch that I have, it's garter stitch, and I have marked locations. I have marked off on each side where the selvage stitch is, and I have marked off where the rows that I want to measure begin. I have not included the cast on or the bind off row. And I've put in these little bits of waste yarn just to keep track of what I'm measuring. Now the first thing I need to know is the number of stitches that I'm measuring. And garter stitch can be a bit tricky to measure. That's why if I'm actually doing a gauge switch for garter stitch, I'm going to keep track of the number of stitches that I've cast on and subtract 2 for the selvage stitches. But in case you want to know how to count them, the way to count a selvage garter stitch is to count each little bump that goes up like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. By the way, this is not the same swatch that you do in the lesson. It's just one that I had hanging around. Now, when I've got those stitches marked off, I jot down the number of stitches on my worksheet. Then I'm going to measure the width. And I want to use a ruler, not a tape measure, because a ruler does not stretch out. And this one is 4.5. So I jot down that the width is 4.5 or 4.5. Then I'm going to do some math. I'm going to clear that. I'm going to divide 23 by 4.5, which gives me 5.1111. That's the number of stitches I have per inch. So I'm going to jot that down on my worksheet. Now if I want to know how this compares to the gauge statement in a pattern, which is in 4 inches, I multiply this by 4. And now is the point where I want to round it off. It is 20.4444, which rounds to 20. So I will jot that down on my worksheet. That's the number of stitches I get over 4 inches. And I can compare that to a pattern statement. Now I need to deal with the length. Let's measure the length of this first. And this one measures to, well, it's almost 4, but it's a little bit over. It's 4 1/8. So if I look at my worksheet, I've got the conversion, and 1/8 converts to 4.125. So I'm going to jot that down. Now I need to count my number of rows. The easiest way to count garter stitch rows is to count the ridges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Since it takes 2 rows to make a ridge, I know that I have 44 rows, 22 times 4. Now let's do the calculations for this one. I divide 44 by 4.125. And I get 10 rows, 0.666 for my number of rows per inch. Now if I want to know how to compare this to a pattern, I need to multiply it by 4 for 4 inches times 4, and I get 42.666, which rounds up to 43. So I get 43 rows per inch. And that is gauge for garter.